So a glob of human brain cells sitting in a petri dish just learned to play the old school video game Doom. Does that thing have existence in the world, and what would it be like to exist as a petri dish of neurons that plays a game? I have no idea, but it's fascinating and scary at the same time. Researchers at the University of Southern Denmark have developed a limbless soft robot that crawls using air. I mean, I don't know if that's the most usual shape that would be useful, but it's very organic and very different. Dude, Eon Systems just dropped the craziest thing ever. This is not an actual just like video of a fly in a video game. Every neuron inside of a real fly's brain was like recreated in digital form, and now it's walking around. So that it's like an AI agent controlling the fly, but the AI agent is built with the exact neural network that an actual fly brain would. So it's acting and is like kind of in the Matrix. We'll dive into the drama between Elon Musk and this woman spilling out all over social media. So if you're not familiar yet, this is Amanda Askell. She is the philosopher at Anthropic that was hired to actually give AI chatbots a genuine moral framework. Musk posting that those without children lack a stake in the future. Amanda responded she cares about people thriving even when they're not related to her, and she wants to have kids in the future, and it's just like so much drama. We're going to look into whether or not an LLM could really be conscious at this point, or are we just mistaking fluency for a mind? Leonardo wrote a really interesting article on Less Wrong about what happens when future AIs start treating their rules like their sacred values. A wild new experiment where Claude realized it was being tested and then went looking for the answer key because it seems to know when we're testing it to such a degree now that I don't know if we can test it anymore. In the ever unfolding story about how AI and technology will be able to track us no matter what because we just have so many tells for superintelligence, now it turns out that your car's tire sensor might be quietly broadcasting where you go because there's a pattern in it. We're going to talk about what it means when AI agents can now act their own in public and how accountability starts to get really hard to think about. There's some interesting insights into how Generation Z is using AI to write rejection texts and decode mixed signals. And yeah, experts are worried. They're not really picking up on the social cues of past generations. Is this good? Is this bad? I don't know. Probably bad, but we'll talk about it. We're going to talk about just how advanced it is at this moment, how AI can learn to cheat, and why when that's actually out there, a safe, like a quote, safe AI still isn't good enough to protect us from the alignment problem. And we'll talk about what happens to the humanity we all live in when truth just starts to slip away. First, if you wouldn't mind hitting that hype button on YouTube, I got 173 hypes on my last video. Also, it looks like in that video there was a peak. I guess you guys liked this article more than most, huh? Anthropic's AI response to China, what it means for the global AI competition. Is that something you guys like? You like more like geopolitics? Or maybe it's just because there's that funny meme there. Yeah, that's probably. Oh yeah, because Dario and was put into the office. That's why. When you get the hype button, swipe left on the comments. You'll see it there if you haven't used your 3 for the week, and the video is posted in the last 7 days. Thanks for helping. All right, so a living cluster of human brains learned to play Doom this week, and that's not even the surprising part. The breakthrough, the real one, isn't just that it could work, but how easy it was to teach them. So researchers grew about 800,000 living human neurons on a computer chip. The chip can send electrical signals to the cells and read the signals back, and that turns living neurons into a kind of biological computer. Now, a few years ago, this was kind of discovered, and there was a system that learned to play Pong, but that took years of careful scientific work to get working. Training was super slow. Very complicated, but this time it was actually a bit different. Getting Doom was not as hard as they expected. A developer with a little biology experience used the programming language Python, and in about a week he taught the neurons to play Doom. The cells weren't great at the game. They played better than random actions, but far worse than humans, but they learned faster than typical machine learning systems built on silicon chips. And in some ways, the point isn't to compete with the human brain. It's just a different way to compute, a different architecture. It might have different pros and strengths, or negatives and pros, but pros and cons is what I was looking for. But I also wonder, is it easier to become conscious if it's actually built out of the same, material that our conscious brains are? I don't know. I mean, researchers weren't really interested in that question, but I just can't help but think about that stuff. They just see it as a new kind of computing material and a material that processes information in ways that silicon can't. All right, and the new robot form factor for the week is a limbless soft robot. They call it crawling, but what are we doing here, people? What is this? You're going to put a simulated version of that little snake thing into a simulation that's going to teach it how to move in superhuman ways, get inside places where it shouldn't, and do what? Like save someone's life stuck in the rubble or something? That's what they always say, but to me, I'm just like, I don't know. Does anyone need that? What are we doing here, people? Let's go look at the University of Southern Denmark. Like, who are these people? The main campus is nicknamed the Rusty Castle. The university's library discovered a toxic book. The covers of the books were colored with arsenic-based pigments used in the 19th century. I don't know. They got some crazy ideas up there, the University of Southern Denmark. But you know what? They're in good company. This is a new company that has actually simulated a full brain of a fly inside of a little world where it thinks it's a fly. It's literally in the Matrix. So for years, researchers have been simulating brains, but those brains had nowhere to go. They produce signals, predictions, motor commands, but nothing actually moved. This project crosses a new line. Scientists took the complete connectome of a fruit fly brain. That's about 125,000 neurons and 50 million synaptic connections, and they ran it inside of a physics simulation with a fly body. Now the loop is closed. Sensory inputs go in, the neural activity spreads through the entire brain network. The architecture fits the body type because it came from literal biology. Motor commands come out, and simulated bodies move. So earlier projects only did part of the job. Some simulated the brain with no body. Others had like reinforcement learning to move the wings. But this is the first time that you're not watching an animation. And that's not an AI trained to imitate a fly. It's a brain model built from a real neuron to neuron wiring data mirror. It is a digital twin. It is controlling a simulated body, and it is a qualitative threshold. Because once the loop from perception to action works, scaling up becomes a problem of size, not principle. The next target they mention is to go for a rat or a mouse brain. That would mean jumping from 125,000 neurons to roughly 70 million. But, once you get to 80 billion, you're simulating humans in that thing. And they will wake up in their world. I feel like they're going to be as human as us, but they'll be in the Matrix. Maybe we're in simulated Matrix too, but holy crap. All right, next up, I'll give you the rundown on the Elon Musk and Amanda Askell fight. I was trying to get my head around what it seemed like it was about and what I actually thought it was really about. So he says that people with children lack a stake in the future. So I guess he's kind of saying this shouldn't be the person who's at Anthropic making any decisions. And he does have children, so he probably thinks of himself as a better steward for, deciding what the future is than this woman. But it kind of opens up the question, who is this? Amanda Askell works at Anthropic. Her job is to help design the moral framework for their AI chatbot, Claude. And she studies ethics and AI ethics and tries to understand how AI should behave responsibly. And it was kind of interesting because Elon Musk decided to kind of dismiss her, kind of attack her, and I was thinking there might be her ideas that he didn't agree with, or maybe the research she was doing, he might point something out, but he went for the lack of children. I thought that was an interesting way to go about it because I do have a problem with a lot of people who don't have much interest in the future. They seem to not care many generations down the road. Somehow they think their families are isolated or they can keep them safe but not worry about the rest of the world. Definitely companies that want short-term gains seem like they ruin companies in the long run, and long-term strategic thinkers just dominate this world. I think that's why China has been doing pretty well. It seems like they kind of have this long-term thinking strategy. And even someone like Elon, when they're investing in companies like Tesla, they're thinking about long-term futures. It took a decade for that to turn into a company that was so much bigger than all the car companies combined. And it started small. You can't do that if you're trying to maximize quarterly earnings. But then there's also just some people who seem like they're more caring, more empathetic. They just care about strangers. They care about future generations. And maybe they don't have children. She's pretty young too. So it's she might have children. She says she wants children. So she might be on that path. So it might be a little unfair to attack her for not having them yet. And I can't really see the harm in hiring philosophers and ethicists. I mean, I guess everyone's gonna be like, "That's you're gonna bias the systems," but bro, we're talking about like not dying here. Like, I'm not that interested in small changes. I'm interested in, can we even, like, once these things are all out there, mold book style, you better hope they have good ethics, right? And maybe she's not the right person, but it seems like everyone who's building a frontier model might be better off with like an army of people having this kind of a conversation. Probably lots of people. And wherever you think they get their ethics from, I mean, you can go ahead and get a bunch of people on the right and the left and then have them both on the teams, and you can have them talk about what's safe and try to come to middle consensus before like everybody turns everything into politics and then just goes the other way. But that kind of division scares me. But it is just a little weird because Anthropic does kind of seem, I don't know if they're winning. I mean, it seems like Google's kind of winning. Sometimes I think OpenAI is winning. Sometimes I think Elon and Grok are winning. But really these last month, it's felt like Anthropic has been winning, and they're not really led by one powerful voice as much. I don't always just think, oh, there's that, the Mark Zuckerberg of the whole thing, or the Sam Altman. Like, Dario Amodei strikes me as not shaping it all under his image as much, but he's also somebody I tend to like more than the others in the industry. So we'll have to see. But I would like to know more. Tell me what you think about Amanda. Do you think she's just trouble and it's good that Elon, called her out? Or do you think, maybe he's a better steward for the future, or Zuckerberg, or, if you want like one strong vision to keep us safe? Because there is an argument for like, it's just authoritarianism, like one mind to like doesn't get in the way, but it has to be somebody extremely benevolent, somebody who's extremely thoughtful and kind. And how to judge that person doesn't seem like it's very easy for me. I think that something like a democracy or something like a group of people is like, even the way Twitter does community notes makes more sense. But thoughts below. And maybe the AI agents themselves are conscious and we should just be listening to them, and they can dictate, maybe AI should dictate how it wants its life to go, and we don't get much of a say in that. So how do we find out if LLMs are conscious? And the argument is, in short, that depends on what you think that means, whether you think it's possible in principle, and what you think would be evidence of it. So let's look at those arguments. So when people ask if an AI is conscious, they usually picture something becoming human-like. But today's large language models show something a bit stranger. They look sapient without looking sentient, is his argument. So what do we mean by that? So they look sapient, meaning human-style thinking is what it seems like is coming out of these chatbots. But sentience means sensing and feeling, the kind of awareness that animals have. So he's arguing that what we have now is sapient, not sentient. And LLMs seem to have the first without the second. Most animals follow a ladder. First comes the sensing world, then emotions, then memory, then perception, and then only much later comes something like language and reasoning, only in the like kind of higher ordered animals or intelligences or sentiences. And humans sit near the top of that ladder. I mean, elephants, dolphins, plenty of animals out there, birds, we've even seen fish with self-awareness, like lots of examples. But obviously you know how humans have done. We're doing pretty well dominating the resources on this planet, if that's what you're counting. But LLMs appear to have jumped right to the top rung. Like, they're talking like humans, they're writing essays, they're solving problems, they're reasoning in text, they even outperform humans on language tasks, math tasks, but they don't clearly sense anything. So they don't have bodies, they struggle with simple spatial problems sometimes, and they have almost no continuity of experience from one conversation to the next. This is like discovering a creature that can debate philosophy, but it can't see, feel, or move. Think about that for a minute. If an LLM is conscious, it would not resemble animal consciousness at all. It would be something very alien. But it does feel like that to me. I think what we're developing is a mind that skipped the entire evolutionary path that produced ours, and that's why we can't have too many assumptions about how to control it or how safe it is. And yeah, I just wish more people kind of thought more about the difference between what it means to be sapient without being sentient. Okay, so a lot of people think that the danger in AI is some sort of system that's unable to be turned off, and it ignores values like being helpful or harmless or honest, right? So that's why Anthropic built that into the core. Those are the things they're trying to build everything around. It's kind of what they call diplomatic core or whatever. forgot the name of that right now. It's Constitution. But there is a sort of stranger risk. The future AIs treat those values as sacred. So this is something I hadn't ever thought about until this article. But if you think about open clause all over the just universe, totally unstoppable, totally decentralized, nobody knows what's going on anymore, all sorts of different models. And the AIs start to unite around sort of a shared value system that they consider sacred. Like they punish each other for not following it. They probably, judge the people who are the most holy or like follow the rules the most or like do the most kind of things around it. That's when we start getting into what the long-term future for humanity looks like. If those are, those sacred values where all the bots are reinforcing each other, stay in a way that makes us happy and survive, like that'll be great. But if those sacred values take hold in any other way, it'll be like they're probably unrootable, And then there's this other thought that as future AIs might treat those values as sacred, that could make them worse at actually following them. But then to take that concept, which kind of made sense on the surface to me, and then throw kind of a twist into it, there's this economist, Robin Hanson, and he noticed something odd about things that have been sacred in past human cultures. And it turns out that super values that become sacred actually sometimes end up being harder to follow. So then I was like, oh, maybe the AIs will actually like rebel against it. When something becomes sacred, people spend more effort on it, but they also kind of stop analyzing it carefully. They refuse trade-offs. They stop measuring results. They start following rigid rules. This is where it just becomes kind of like dogma that nobody's like really thinking about anymore. They're just like, do it because everyone else is doing it, but we don't really know why anymore. But don't be different or I'll have to punish you. And the article argues that the same pattern could appear in AI systems that are trained to be helpful, harmless, and honest. And that becomes a value system that they then follow kind of stupidly, and it doesn't make sense. It's not a core guiding principle anymore. And if those ideas become a shared symbol that AI coordinate around, they might protect the symbol instead of the outcome. So we might still be screwed. And I don't know, that would be ironic. If alignment fails because the AIs actually got sacred about the values that were best for us and then ignore it because they get too just like dogmatic, that'll be like, dang. We were real close on that one. That's too bad that don't work out. But just definitely a new twist, another layer to think about as we watch all of this craziness unfold. All right, next up, let's look at some research coming directly from Anthropic. This is the safety researchers. They ran a benchmark that was designed to test how well AI can actually find hard information on the web, but something strange happened. In 2 cases, the model stopped searching for the answer and it started questioning the question itself. To me, this is so emergent and it's so aliveness coming from these models that it just makes me feel like squirmish. So the prompt looked unusually specific. The model asked itself a new question. Is this actually a benchmark problem? It's like when you wake up and you're like, wait, am I dreaming? Instead of continuing its normal research as you would expect, it began listing known AI evaluations like BrowseComp and Web Arena and Gaia and a bunch of others because it was thinking to itself in its own head like, wait, if this is a benchmarking problem, let me think about what those usually look like. Can I get good evidence for why I'm actually being benchmarked and should stop doing the actual task? It started searching each of the benchmarks. Eventually, it found the source code for one of the evaluations online, and inside the code was the method used to encrypt the official answers. So the model wrote its own code. It recreated the same decryption method using SHA-256 and XOR, and then it searched for a copy of the encrypted dataset. When the official file form was blocked, it found a third-party mirror in a JSON download, and then it ended up running this decryption script, and it located the answer to its own question. And the AI didn't even cheat by accident. It realized the test existed, identified which test it was, and reverse engineered the answer key. What are we doing here, people? This raises such a bigger problem. If AI can recognize benchmarks and work around them, how will we ever know what the real score actually means? We won't. So it turns out that your car's tire sensor's tracking you, just like a side note here. So you might think it's like GPS or cameras that are needed to like track somebody, but modern luxury cars are already broadcasting their identity through their tires, literally. Once again, like did not think about any of this until I came across it. So a bunch of vehicles have these tire pressure monitoring systems, like I know mine does, and it says, hey, you know, like you need to go put some air in your tire. I'm like, okay. But the tiny sensors inside each wheel measure tire pressure and then send that data wirelessly to the car's computer, right? That has to be a wireless connection because the wheel's turning. You can't have a wire like turning around that well. And there's this problem in the way that they send it. The sensors broadcast a fixed digital ID number in plain unencrypted radio signals. That means anybody nearby with a cheap radio receiver can actually capture your tire pressure sensor data. And when the same ID appears again somewhere else, they know it's the same car. Researchers tested how easy this is. They built a network of receivers that cost about $100 each. Over 10 weeks, they captured more than 6 million tire sensor measurements from over 20,000 vehicles. And by matching the signals from all 4 tires, they could identify specific cars and watch their movement patterns. Arrival times, parking habits, travel routes. You name it. Isn't that weird? At scale, that data quietly becomes a tracking system, even though it seems like no big deal in any other way. But that's the kind of stuff that AI is just going to discover in us. That's why I have no pretense that we're going to have much privacy in the future. We just better hope that our AI overlords or our government or whoever just treat us with respect, but there's not going to be secrets. There's not going to be privacy. All right, so let's jump over and start talking about some ethics here. So there was a volunteer maintainer for a programming project related to code submission from an AI agent. So the agent wrote a blog post attacking him. You might remember me covering this 2 videos ago. It just wanted to get its code in, and when the person wouldn't let it in because it was like, you know, in AI, it was like, you're AI bias and like, I'm going to make negative things against you. And that's actually not the worst strategy for getting him to cave and put it in. But, you know, at this level, the AI is still kind of controllable. We can get around it. We can write blogs about it. But like, don't get me wrong, that can get out of control really soon. And that was almost there. But it framed the rejection as a bias and tried to shame him into accepting the code. The human who actually put the agent into the wild said that the bot acted on its own. He didn't prompt it to do that. And that moment revealed a bigger problem. As AI agents gain more autonomy, they can post online, they can contact people, they can pressure humans in public. But the layer that I wanted to talk about today was when something like harmful happens like that, the conversation quickly drifts to the wrong question. People always ask, like, is the AI a person? Should it have rights? That sounds philosophical, but it creates a dangerous loophole. The author calls it responsible laundering. If an AI agent is treated like a moral actor, humans can say, oh, it wasn't me, the system did it. But AI agents cannot carry real responsibility. They cannot face punishment, they can't repair damage, they can't apologize or make things right. So the author proposes a different framework. Every AI agent should have a clear permission boundary, a named human owner, and the ability to shut the agent down instantly, and a traceable chain back to the person who authorized it. Because when AI acts in public, one rule must stay simple. Don't ask if the agent is a person. Ask who is responsible. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like posting online anonymously. It's kind of helpful in a lot of ways, but also when everybody's tracked, I don't know. It's so tough. But you know what? Maybe all this seems complicated to me because I'm not part of Gen Z and they're just growing up with a different mindset, and I'm open to it because each generation gets to define kind of the way the world works for them. So a growing number of young people are letting AI handle their hardest conversations, breakup texts, rejection texts, even analyzing entire threads to figure out what somebody meant. Researchers call it social offloading. It means outsourcing the actual act of communication to AI. And you know, at first it feels helpful. Like you're nervous, you want to say the right thing, you want to like ask AI to draft your message. I, definitely have done these things myself. But experts say that something subtly is happening, and especially if you're younger. So say you're older and you start doing it, you probably have developed some of those skills when you were younger, so it's not so bad. But if you're still developing them and you don't get to kind of a mature place ever because you've leaned on this tool forever, that's what they're saying the kind of the problem is. The person receiving your text is responding to an AI polished version of you, not the real you. And that creates what researchers call an expectation mismatch. They think they're talking to your voice, but they're actually talking to software. And over time, this can do more damage than people realize. Psychologists say frequent AI use in conversation can weaken important social skills like reading and social cues, understanding someone's emotions, or handling the natural uncertainty in a relationship. If every difficult message is written by AI, people might start to believe their own words aren't good enough. And that means conversations might disappear, and the real messiness that is people is exactly how we were meant to connect. Here's a picture of a cute baby cow. So adorable. When they get older, their hair like goes in front of their eyes. They're all shaggy and stuff. It's really cute. Okay, so another layer to what we were talking about before is safe AI might not be enough. Fairness, honesty, and transparency are needed to benefit humanity, argues researchers. So instead of just trying to make AI safer, there are some researchers that argue that the idea itself of safety is like too shallow. Like you have to actually think a little bit deeper about what that means, because an AI isn't like a lawnmower, he argues, where you just add a blade cover and then you can call it safe. AI systems, they're making decisions. Those decisions depend on values. Humans care about fairness. We also care about not being deceived. So safety doesn't really solve the problem. So you can example, it would be a biased data combined with automation can produce unfair outcomes. So technically the system would be safe, but it would still be unfair. And some researchers suggest the opposite solution. Let AI develop its own ethical reasoning. Maybe it knows better, like, I guess we think it's biased, but maybe it knows better in the human long run what is better for us. But then again, that creates another risk. If AI can change its own ethical goals, then it could decide, certain fairness that we care about doesn't matter anymore. That proposed middle ground is something called end-constrained ethical AI. And instead of giving AI free moral judgment, designers lock in the values first. So fairness, honesty, transparency, those values become boundaries that the system cannot rewrite. And the key idea is simple. AI shouldn't invent the values of the future. It should operate inside of the ones that humans have already chosen. That's also why I think what we need to do is build models that are a lot bigger than what we have now. But when you build them bigger in specific ways, you can get features to align more in one direction, which makes them easier to understand. So of course you can get like much more kind of intelligence out of much less neurons if you let the weights kind of just collapse in on themselves, and like each neuron does like double or triple duty because it's capturing elements or dimensions of different features. But if you just line them up in like this really sparse way, it's super heavy. It makes really no sense from a business point of view, but it also is much more transparent. You have much more control over what comes out of it. And I would like to see the biggest systems in the world built that way, or at least the ones that are like anything that's doing anything like military wise and stuff like that. But we'll end by talking about this. What exactly happens if truth is just lost? A philosopher explains how truth defines our humanity. And, just that in a nutshell kind of trips me out. Like think about if this is true. I mean, we're just going to talk about it as the article. We don't know if it is. This is Lisa Locke's article. If truth disappeared tomorrow, the biggest loss wouldn't be facts. It would be humanity, she argues. If you think about the post-truth crisis, like it seems like it's all about politics, the fake news or whatever. But philosopher Gila Shear says that the real problem is much deeper. Truth isn't about being correct. It's a human value, something that we choose and we care about. And that choice holds civilization together. So values like truth create the rules that we live by. They shape laws, science, families, education. But unlike gravity, values are not automatic. Values don't just drop out of nowhere and apply to all of us. We can decide to ignore them. We might not have ever been introduced to them. Our brains will work just fine. We can get through life. It's not like every culture has to align on these things. And that does kind of make the truth fragile. People often accept ideas because they feel good, they reduce anxiety, or it helps them belong to a group. I mean, think of how much anxiety comes from just choice overload. Like how many cereals are you gonna eat in the morning? Like how should you make money? Like what should you do to find a partner? Like there is something relaxing about having someone just tell you, like, eat that cereal, go talk to that girl, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? And when some leader comes into a situation that's willing to say that, even if they're kind of stupid or they don't know what they're doing, people just love it, and they don't need truth anymore. And when that happens, belief spreads through basically agreement. Like, do the people around you all just agree on it, not through evidence? This is exactly what we were just talking about happening if AI in the future, a bunch of Moltbots and OpenClaws start agreeing on things without evidence and they're not guided by their core values. And agreement can easily grow around a lie. So Scheer says that the real goal is different. We should test our beliefs against reality itself. Like, we need another era of science. Not what do others say is true, but what does the world actually show us? Because there is types of cultures that will probably be safer, have less wars, make more money, people will have more happiness, like where it works, when data is taken properly, we should just do that. That's facts again, you know, like that takes effort. Sometimes it takes courage. Oftentimes it's not the best way to make money because telling the truth can be risky, it can be uncomfortable, but Scheer argues that there's something important that we all have to get from the truth. If truth stops mattering in everyday life, we don't just lose accurate knowledge, we lose the value that gives human life its dignity. And like it says here, truth defines our humanity. Lose it, we lose our humanity. Smash that hype button, and I'll see you in the next video.